All right. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Cayeluhb podcast, where I answer your burning questions. We have a great lineup this week, and including in that lineup, we have 2 questions that were emailed in. So these are the first 2 questions that have been emailed in, and I'm very, very happy about that because that's exciting. And I like it when people email me questions because it shows that you guys are really interested and want me to continue doing this. So if you have a question, please feel free to email it to dbdcayeluhb@gmail.com. That email will be in the YouTube bio. This is posted on SoundCloud, YouTube, hopefully on all streaming services, still pending on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Basically, the way it works is if you want to put anything on one of those major streaming services, you need to go through a distribution service, which is not ideal because you either have to spend money or you can go through free, and then they basically take all your royalty and then they own your stuff. So I got to figure that out. I mean, hypothetically, I wouldn't really care about anyone owning this because it's not like I'm making this to profit off of it anyways. This is just really meant to be something for your enjoyment, something for my enjoyment, and something to just really build a community. I'm not really doing this as a job or anything. This isn't like my Twitch channel or anything. But yeah, this episode will be out on SoundCloud and YouTube. I'm not sure if I will be putting anything out on major streaming services, but if anything does happen with that, the best place to find any information about that is going to be on my Twitter at twitter.com/TTVCayeluhb, Cayeluhb. That's really just the place where I'm going to be tweeting about anything related to this podcast, my music, my streams, anything like that is all going to be found there. So please go check that out, go follow. I would really appreciate any support there. Before we start today, I'm just going to go over the format again. Basically, the way this works is I have 5 questions here, and I'm basically just going to talk to myself, just talking to my microphone, and just think out loud about these 5 questions. They can be deep or they can be very simple. If you want to ask a question, there are 2 options. You can, like I said before, email dbdcayeluhb, Cayeluhb@gmail.com, and that email will be in the YouTube description, or you can join my Discord server, and I will add a link to that as well in the YouTube description. So, also, actually, before we start, I want to say I'm very, very excited. On Friday, we are going to have our first guest on the Cayeluhb podcast. My good friend Connor will be joining me on the podcast, and I can't wait. It's going to be the first one with a guest, and then from there on out, every Friday is going to have a guest, and I'm really looking forward to it. So mark your calendars. That episode's going to be really fun. All right, let's get into these questions. So question number 1 comes from my good friend Sal, Sal has asked questions before, and Sal's question today is, what guitarists / musicians in general do you think are underrated? So I'm gonna start with guitarists. Underrated guitarists. Let's see. This is a good question because I don't know. I feel like some guitarists are underrated because like people know of them, but they aren't really like popularized or really like accepted for their technical skill. So like for example, John Lennon and George Harrison were great guitarists, and you don't really think of them as guitarists because they were just part of the Beatles. That's like the first thing you think of. They were just part of the Beatles. I actually, the amount of people that don't know what instruments each of the Beatles played is really, really funny to me. Like most people will tell you, okay, John Lennon sang and Ringo played drums, but the people who can't tell you whether or not George played bass or guitar is really, really funny to me. And I mean, yeah, that's very, very, very funny to me, even though it probably shouldn't be that funny. The Alice in Chains guitarist, James Cantrell, I think is his name. Jerry Cantrell. Fantastic guitarist. He's incredible. I mean, I really, really enjoy his playing. I mean, his lead guitar work is beautiful. I'm really a huge fan of Cantrell, and I really like Alice in Chains too. I actually recommend that all of you here should go look up Alice in Chains. If you want like a good song to get into them, I would say listen to Nutshell. It's a bit of a sad song, but it is beautiful. It is such an amazing song, and it's just, yeah, definitely Jerry Cantrell. Underrated. Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac, no one talks about guitar. Right? It's the sad truth. He's incredible. His technique is just something that you did not see from lead guitarists at the time. You don't see it now. Actually, we've even moved farther away from that. He didn't play with a pick. He would exclusively play fingerstyle. If you don't know what that is, it's basically just it's like classical guitar, where instead of most people today are playing with a pick to get a heavier tone, he played with his fingers to get a lighter tone. And what fingerstyle enables you to do is you can basically hit notes at the same exact time. You can't hit notes with the same exact time with a pick. You can strum, but when you're playing fingerstyle, you can hit everything all at once, right? So Lindsey Buckingham, his talent and his ridiculousness was that he was so good at fingerstyle that it sounded like there were two guitars playing when he was playing, a rhythm guitar and a lead guitar. He was that good at playing fingerstyle that what he was playing in the back sounded like another guitar playing chords. It was absolutely beautiful. Then I think I'm going to give one more, and I am going to go with Alex Lifeson of Rush. And I know I talked about Rush a little bit last time when I was talking about Neil Peart, rest in peace, which is, just depressing. But the thing about Lifeson was he kind of got overshadowed by Peart. Peart got a lot of the attention. Geddy Lee, of course, the bassist, also got a lot of attention. But Lifeson was terrific. If you don't know anything about Rush, basically they were a Canadian rock band that wanted to take everything normal about rock music and just make it a little different, so you would listen to it and you would say, this is a little fucked. This isn't right. So they would they loved fucking with time signatures. If you don't know what a time signature is, music is, oh my goodness, my mic stand is falling, sorry. Music is broken up in the way you read music into what is called measures. And traditionally, in what's called common time, is 4 quarter notes per measure. So you have 4 beats. You would go 1, 2, 3, 4. What Rush would love to do, what Alex Lifeson, Neil Peart, and Geddy Lee would love to do, is just change up the time signature on you and play just a little polyrhythm that would just tickle your brain a little bit, because it's like you're counting in 4 and it's like ba da 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 ba ba ba. It's like that was just I want to be in America, everything's free in America. That was just what I just sang, but it was like that. They would change the time signature like crazy, and to be able to do that, A, to be able to write riffs like that, and B, to be able to keep that time and keep that time signature and play that live, that is insane. And I mean, Lifeson was just so ridiculously technically skilled that he's definitely one of the most underrated guitarists ever. All right, moving on to question 2. And this comes from my good friend Robert. This is the second emailed in question. The first one is going to be up next. This is from my good friend Robert. Robert has shown a lot of support in the first 2 episodes with comments and views, so thank you for that a lot, Robert, and I really appreciate your question. Robert's question is, has our generation gotten too soft? And in Robert's email, he referenced things like trigger warnings and that type of things, like safe spaces. So I've been thinking about how to answer this question since he emailed me, and I think that was like on Friday. This is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one to me, because at different times I feel like both sides of this argument have a lot of validity. On one hand, if someone is extremely traumatically scarred from something, if someone has an awful lot of trauma, and they get exposed to something without, some warning, without some, like a trigger warning, I'm saying, that can really be a terrible experience for that person. Like a scarring experience. It could trigger an anxiety attack. It could trigger just a total, complete shutdown. So that is definitely something that cannot be downplayed in this discussion, is that if someone has seriously bad trauma and something like this, like you get exposed to something without a warning, that can really fuck you up, right? That can really, really have an extremely negative impact on you. So, right, there's that. But on the other hand, life isn't going to give you a trigger warning all the time, right? You have no way of knowing when something is going to come up. And this is what I've been thinking about for a while, is that life is not going to warn you about something that's about to happen. There is no promise that if you're walking on the street and you turn a corner, you will not see something that is going to trigger trauma in you, right? There is no promise of that. So it becomes, for me, this question of, is it ethical to condition someone to be ready to face their trauma head on? And my first instinct is screaming no, right? Because no matter how much you delve into something, and no matter how much you condition yourself to it, and you think you can handle it, and you think you can do it, there's always going to be one thing that can just totally come out of the blue and wipe you. It's like with anything, right? Like if I'm training to run the mile, and I like haven't been able to run a mile, but I've been training for months, and I've been running time trials over and over and over again, right? And then like I'm ready to go, I'm ready to do this, and I step on the line, and someone turns to me and says, "This track is different, by the way. You do 5 laps instead of 4 in the mile." And then like they say that, and the gun goes off. That's gonna fuck me up, right? Because you have a few questions, right? A, are they messing with me, and this is just a 4-lap mile? B, is this going to change my race plan because I clock myself out from the, like, that is totally going to fuck with you. And that is the thing. Life is always going to be able to hit you with that left hook out of nowhere. So here is my answer to that. I don't necessarily think we've gotten too soft, because I think I don't think it's getting too soft. I think it's being overprotective of other people. Because I mean, I know what you're talking about. I think I know what you're talking about. I mean, like, I see on people's Instagram stories all the time posting about a trigger warning before something. And sometimes I'll scroll through and I'll be like, why do you need a trigger warning for that? Because for me, and for anyone that I can think of, that's not the left hook that life is going to throw at me and hit me out of nowhere. And all of a sudden I'm going to be like, whoa, like that was a huge deal and I'm totally fucked up now, right? That doesn't exist to me in that. So it's like, why would you put a warning for that? Because I don't know. So I think rather than calling it soft, I think people are just wanting to protect other people, and maybe they might get a little overprotective sometimes. And I think maybe it can be a little smothering sometimes. But I wouldn't say we've gotten too soft. I wouldn't describe it as soft. I would maybe describe it as careful. I think maybe we've gotten a little too cautious as a generation, and we've been scared to, to say something that might hurt someone. And sometimes it's necessary to rip that Band-Aid off when there's something important to say. So that would be my take on it. I don't know. That's a good question, and I feel like I could talk about that longer. But we have a few other questions that I want to move on to. So thank you for that, Robert. That was a really, really good question. That was very thought provoking. Thank you. Our next question comes from Eli, and Eli was the first person to email in a question. So thank you for that, my good friend Eli. Eli asks, is love at first sight a real thing? Short answer, no. I do not believe that is a real thing. And here's why. I believe love goes deeper than physical attraction. I have a very strong belief. So love, I think everyone has love in them, whether they want to believe it or not. You have love in you. You have love around you. Love is an energy that people have for one another, people have for things. And everyone loves something or someone, and there's always someone who will love that person. But I just don't know how you can see someone and decide that you love them. And even deeper than that, love at first sight is usually in reference to, like, you see this person and they make eye contact with you, and it's, holy shit, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with, right? How? You know nothing about that person. How can you know a person from a glance into their eyes? How is that a real thing? You can be infatuated with someone at sight. You can look at someone and say, holy shit, that's the most beautiful person I've ever seen. That doesn't matter. You're not in love with them. Sorry, I'm getting very passionate because this is something that just works me up. Like, it's stupid to believe that this is a real thing, that you can fall in love with someone by looking at them. And of course, I would respect anyone else's opinion if anyone has looked at someone and has fallen in first love. I obviously have no experience with this, so if this has happened to you, good for you. All the power to you. But for me, it would not work for me, for a person like me, because I fall in love with someone based on their beliefs, their ideals, their values, stuff like that. I fall in love with the person, and that's not to say that looks aren't important, because I don't know, I would find it very difficult to be in love with someone I wasn't physically attracted to. I would find that extremely difficult. And I don't know, I guess that also plays into this question of, is there a perfect match for you on this earth? Is there a soulmate? Is that a thing? And I know that someone's asked that question, so I'm not going to delve into that right now. That's a bit of a deeper one. But I mean, I don't know. I just think the idea of seeing someone and deciding that you are in love with that person based on one look at them when you really know nothing about them, dumb. Stupid. Dumb. Of course, that's just my opinion. I obviously have no experiences with this. I would not say I'm in love with any particular person right now. I love a lot of people, but I am not in love with any particular person at the moment. So I don't know. I really don't know if love at first sight is a thing. I would say no, because just off the bat to me that seems stupid, but I really wouldn't know. I guess that's something you can never know if it's real until you experience it, right? Okay. Moving on, this question is from Jackson, my very good friend, who has asked plenty of good questions. And Jackson asks, why do powerful emotions make you say things that you don't mean? So, my interpretation of this question is like talking to a significant other. Or not a significant other. Like, the first thing that I thought of was like when you talk to someone that you like, that you have a crush on. And I thought of like how you get nervous and like how you just like say like things that you think you're spitting game, and it's just and I think that there's 100% a reason for that. Again, I want to I talked about the scientific aspect of confidence and dopamine, and that links back to this, right? If you are near someone, if you're having a conversation with someone that you like, that dopamine, you're gonna have a dopamine rush. You're also your heart is going to start beating faster, your heartbeat is going to rise, which is going to cause hyperactivity in your body, right? Just from a like health perspective, your anxiety levels are going to rise when you're talking to someone that you are either infatuated with or that you have a crush on. I'm just going to use the language have a crush on for now, because I don't know, there are like other terms that you could use, but I don't know how accurate those are. I think the most accurate for this situation would be having a crush. But I mean, yeah, I think that from a scientific standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, because when you feel these super strong emotions, we aren't comfortable with that because it's not what we're used to. The human mind and the human body are very, very conditioned to like what it is used to. Very conditioned to like repetition, right? When all of a sudden you have this super strong emotion hit you, and like you've been at school all day and you've been hauling it in, and you've just been, like you don't want to be there, you're just boom, there's that person, and it's like, whoa, holy like, oh my god, my palms are sweaty and I'm nervous and I'm freaking out. And then 5 minutes later they leave and are just again, right? So those emotions carry so much power because it's not what you're used to. And I think that has a big factor into it. I think with any powerful emotion, because you're not used to feeling that strength of emotion, it's going to come with nervousness and it's going to come with anxiety. So I also think you really want to impress that person. And sometimes we view impressing that person as not being ourselves. Right? I think a lot of the time we try to imitate someone that's not us. Like to put up a facade and a masquerade of either, confidence, or to pose as someone that is popular for success. I think that has a big deal in it. It's the desire to not fail, A, the desire to not get rejected, B, and the desire to also be able to spend some time with this person and unlock, being able to actually like conversate with them. And I think that's a big mistake. this is something that I really truly do believe. And that is, if you have to change yourself and you have to really empower another person, be it a character, be it someone in your life, if you have to emulate that person, to like impress this person, to be with this person, why are you doing that? Is that really worth it, to lose yourself to be with someone you love? Because if you lose yourself, how do you know you still love them, right? Because you've lost that person who loves them. I don't know. I don't know. I will tell you guys this. Never change who you are for anyone, because you deserve someone who will love you for who you uniquely are. And do not let anyone ever tell you different, because you, the person that you have shaped, you are the only you. No one else has gone through everything that you've been through. Right? So, yeah, I mean, that's why I think powerful emotions make you say things you don't mean. There's the anxiety factor. There's the impression factor. And there's also, you're just freaking out. You want to be with this person. So I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense from a scientific and from a mental standpoint. All right. Moving on to our last question. This question is from Ursula, who will also be on the podcast at some point, which I'm very, very much so looking forward to. And Ursula asks, what makes someone a bad person? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's no such thing as a bad person, right? Because that line of thinking is, yeah, it's a rabbit hole. People who say, how can you say what's good and bad? Because everyone's values are aligned with what they know, and they're doing what they think is good. It's their perspective of good. So how can you say what is a universal good or bad? So then, are you going to say Hitler was a good person by his standards, so therefore he was a good person? Are you going to say, oh, Bill Cosby was a good guy because he did something that fit good with his standards? Are you going to say the juice, Mr. Simpson, was totally fine because he did something that fit his values and he thought he was doing good? Right? I understand that line of thinking. But when you put it at that level, it just doesn't make sense. I really, really think the foundation for being a good human being comes with your experiences and your relationships with other living things. I think there are three pillars. There's your relationship with nature, your relationship with other people, and your relationship with yourself. The first thing is that if you don't have a healthy relationship with nature, you're poisoning yourself, essentially. Right? We are all nature. We all are all cosmic stardust and a million other things that have gone into making us up, and we will, in the form of these molecules that make up our body, essentially live forever, right? The thing is, this is just, I don't know. This is a really, really deep rabbit hole type question where does it make sense that there's one set of values that should just be universally accepted? Right? And that comes to the concept of rules, that comes to the concept of laws. So, there are some obvious things, right? Killing someone, not cool. But then, what if you kill someone in self-defense? And then it's like, oh shit. It's something you actually have to think about. So, but then you also say, okay, well, the person that was trying to hurt that person who got killed in self-defense, that person's a bad person. But what if hurting that person was the only way they had to feed their daughter or their son? Right? Perspective is a very, very tricky thing to grasp. And I don't think anyone really can experience someone else's perspective no matter what. Because, there's the statement of put yourself in their shoes, classic statement that you hear all the time. You can't do that. It is physically impossible for you to fully understand and comprehend the way another person's mind works because you have not gone through all of the experiences they have, right? You are the sum of your experiences. That is the person that you are today. It is everything. It is the culmination of everything you have been through that makes you the person you are today. So, and then that's the other thing. Can you really blame someone for being a bad person? Or is that just their experiences that turn them into that bad person? Are they a result of society itself? Right? It is a very thin line to walk. It is very, very tricky to ask and answer what makes someone a bad person. Because there are bad people in history, right? You can't dodge that. Mao, not a great guy. Not a good guy. He was a bad person. I think that the best way that I can answer this is to literally go back to caveman Cro-Magnon era. In which what made someone a bad person, because a few things, right? The survivability of the actual tribe and the actual race of human beings, right? That plays a role in it. I think that's the only thing that actually plays a role in it. I don't have anything else to list. But that's really primarily what my focus is on. Is that focusing on your own self-interest versus the interest of people around you, versus the interest of humanity as a whole, right? So, for example, Adolf Hitler had his hang-ups about Jews, wasn't a fan of Jewish people. So, I'm sure he thought he was doing the right thing by trying to exterminate them from the world. But at the end of the day, 6 million people are gone, can never come back. And how does that help the human race as a whole when we've just lost 6 million contributing members of the human race? I really think that being a good person comes down to acting outside of your own self-interest to help the bigger picture. And obviously there are a million different ways of looking at this question. There are a million different perspectives, and there are a million different arguments you could have. But down to its core, in my eyes, a bad person is someone who puts themselves above everyone else in terms of everyone else's survivability, in terms of everyone else's ability, in terms of everyone else's just right to exist. If you think that you are more important than another person, and actually everyone thinks that, right? Even if you don't want to say you think that, you're the only person that knows you're alive, You're the only person who can 100% confirm your existence. We've all heard the robot Earth theories. You've all thought that once. Come on, I've thought that once. We've all thought that. You are the only person who can confirm that you exist. So it makes sense that you would look out for yourself. But if you put yourself before other people, no matter what, and you are detrimental to everything as a whole because of your own self-interest, that, in my eyes, makes you a bad person. All right, so those are our questions for today. Thank you guys so much for listening to this edition of the Cayeluhb podcast. Be sure to tune in on Friday at 8 in the morning for our first guest podcast with my good friend Connor, which I'm very excited about. Just a reminder, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Cayeluhb, Cayeluhb, on Twitter at twitter.com/TTV Cayeluhb, 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 on YouTube at youtube.com/C/DBD Cayeluhb, on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Cayeluhb, Cayeluhb. And if you have any questions, you can email them to dbdcaleb@gmail.com. I am Cayeluhb. I bid you good day. Thank you for listening.